Action!
All right, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of All Talk with me, Mike All. Happy that you're here joining us today. An old friend, great comic, a very, very funny person, a Detroit kid, so got a little piece of my heart there, and a Michigan guy as well. Please welcome, look at there it is.
Yeah, buddy.
Weatherup.
I knew what show I was coming on today.
I know. I almost put my Lions on just to see. I should have put it on, but nowadays I try not to let too many people know I'm a Lions fan.
Right.
So, although a Michigan fan has been kind of difficult lately too. I mean,
Michigan, it's still a good program. It's not a great program. It's certainly not like one of the best in the country, but it's still like I get to watch 9 wins a year. It's not terrible. But yeah, I was working recently and I was wearing a hat. I don't remember where I was. But some guy was just like, Lions? And I go, yeah. And he goes, why? And I went, I don't have a good answer for that.
Yeah.
like I'm normally pretty good at that, but I'm like,
Yeah,
I could have worn any other hat. I have Tigers hats. I have Red Wings hats. Don't know why I went with this one.
Everything else was in the laundry, right?
Right, yeah. It was hat day.
Speaking of Tigers, are you missing baseball as much as I'm missing baseball right now?
I am missing baseball so bad. Like, I have a group chat that's my dad, my brother, my Uncle Scott, my Uncle Todd, and then a bunch of my cousins. And it's just like we got through the NFL draft together, and it was like, we have sports. It's a sport thing. Let's talk sports. And then the next day, it was like, all right, well, I'll talk to you guys when baseball comes back. I don't know. I have nothing to talk about.
Right.
Have you been watching any of the Korean baseball?
I've watched a little bit of it. It's actually not bad.
Yeah, it's baseball.
It's baseball. Well, that's the thing. Like, I was talking about, who was I talking to? I think I might have been talking with Vince about it the other day. The thing about baseball is it's one of the few sports that can be played without an audience. Like, even I would say 70% of the people at the game aren't fucking watching the game. They're talking to their buddy, they're drinking. I mean, it's fun to be at the game, but baseball, I don't feel like football, you definitely need a crowd. Basketball, I don't know if you need a crowd for basketball.
Yeah, I mean, also, we're talking as Tigers fans, so we've seen games without people at them before.
That is true.
Like, people in New York are like, what are you talking about? You could never, ever do that. And we're like, no, we do it all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
If it snows on Mother's Day, there's nobody there.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Tigers and everything, you were a huge Verlander fan. I know you were.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on him being pretty quiet about everything that happened with his team? Like, because he was always very outspoken. He was very outspoken, like the balls are juiced, it's this, and he had no problems saying what his complaints or issues were with the MLB. And now he's just.
Yeah, I definitely noticed the fact that it was like, for a guy that loves speaking his mind, he sure was just like, well, let bygones be bygones. What happened? Like, it makes me definitely go, all right, there's something you were doing you shouldn't have been doing. Or even if he wasn't involved, he knew it was going on. Like, he might not have been the one throwing the signals, but he knew it was happening. But again, as a Tigers fan, I saw the mark on Kenny Rogers' hand, and I'm like, I know that's pine tar, but I'm not going to admit it until the series is over.
Yeah.
I'm still going to root for the guy.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, the thing about, like, with him, like, he probably wasn't doing the signs or anything like that, but it's got to be a hell of a lot easier to pitch with a 3-0 lead or a 2-0 lead than it is tied or, closer than that. So, that was a little disappointing for me, seeing him be like that, but, baseball's been tough. Have you been watching? How do you think the Pistons feel with everything with The Last Dance. Have you been watching that?
You know what? I think I've watched like 4 of the 8 episodes. Like I always forget that it's on and miss the first half until like I look at Twitter and I see that it's on. So I've seen some
Yeah.
of it. Honestly, like as a Pistons fan, I remember being a kid. Joe Dumars was my favorite player of any sport at the time. Like I just loved Joe
Okay.
Dumars. I wanted to be Joe Dumars when I grew up. And it was just kind of like we always kind of knew they were better.
Yeah.
Like we pissed them off, and it was like that was our role. We knew that they were going to win the championships, but they were going to hate playing us.
Yeah.
And so to see them 20 years later still crying on national television, we're like, they were mean. It's like, yeah, that was the point. That's why we called them the bad boys.
Exactly.
What did you expect?
I think the thing, and I think I've said this before, I think the thing that I've learned the most from watching The Last Dance, I miss that style of basketball. Like
Yeah.
that, not that I watched today's game of basketball and I enjoy basketball. I think LeBron is fantastic and, roses to everybody, of the game today. But man, that like early 80s to late 90s basketball was just good basketball.
Yeah. And like even up through like 2005, like I was still really into basketball, even after the Pistons kind of started going down the other side of it after they won in 04. I was still paying attention, but yeah, like I respect the game. I respect the guys that are good at it. It's just, I'm not interested. Like I'll watch March Madness. I'll watch playoff basketball. That's about it. Like if there's like a really big game on that matters, like somebody's going to break a record or something, sure. But I just don't have the passion for it that I do for, like, I'll watch baseball, hockey, football, pretty much no matter who's playing. But basketball, it's like,
Yeah. My wife would not let me get the NHL ice package. She lets me get the NFL Sunday ticket so I can watch my Lions. And she's okay with that because she knows when it comes to football, I'm basically going to watch the Lions, maybe one other game, but it's going to be on Sunday. But she knows if I get the NHL ice, I will watch hockey every single night. I won't do shit because I don't care who's playing. The only team that I will not watch is the Penguins and Cindy Crosby. I can't stand him and I can't stand the Penguins. They're the only team in the league I won't watch.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. My brother and I used to split it, and then he moved back to Detroit. And so like that next year, I was like, hey, we split. And he's like, dude, they just played them here. I was like, I'm not going to watch hockey this year. Crap. I did not think this through. But yeah, I would do the same thing. I'd get home from a show. It's 1 a.m. and I'm like, oh, right. Calgary's playing in LA. Sweet. Hockey's on.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think does Vince Moronto, he'll watch other games, right? He's by far the biggest Blackhawk fan that I know, but
I don't know if he'll watch a game the Blackhawks aren't playing it though.
I have to ask him.
Yeah.
Because he knows his Black. He might. He knows. He's watching. I love working with Vince during hockey season because he'll be like, "Don't say anything about the game. I'm recording it." And you're just like, "But I'm not recording it. I want to watch it." He's like, "You're not putting this game on in the green room." I'm like, "All right, man."
Have you ever done a show with Vince where like he's watching a game in the green room and something bad happens and they're like, "All right, Vince, you're on stage." He just gets out there and he's just like visibly upset through the beginning of his set until he gets into it, and then he goes back into Vince, but you could just see the fuck you on his face. Where it's like the Blackhawks give up. Oh, it's my favorite thing in the world. It's like you literally and actually that happened to me the year the Michigan State blocked football, the blocked field goal. That was like 4 years ago. Harbaugh's first year.
Ago, yeah.
I was doing shows in Buffalo, New York. And like the host was just some like local kid, and it was me and Dave Coulier from Full House. I used to tour with him, and you know this. But like it was just some local kid opening for us, and I'm in the back watching that. It happens. I am scream swearing in the green room of a family clean show, by the way, just blowing up, screaming at the TV, and this kid is like comes in worried about me. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "It's just football. This sucks. It's the worst thing that's ever happened. I'm never gonna not hear about this for the rest of my life." And he like thought it was funny, and he's like, "Should I say it in your intro?" And I was like, "You should not say that at all, ever." And so sure enough, he's like, "Next guy coming to the stage might be in kind of a bad mood because I guess he's a Michigan fan." And I went up and I just saw red for the first 4 minutes of my set. I was so angry, and it actually went great. Like I got off stage that night, and I called my girlfriend at the time. I'm like, apparently angry works for me. I didn't know that.
How hard was it not to like swear though? Because like it's this family friendly thing, and you just want to be like,
I so did. I just wanted to walk on stage and be like, listen, fuck you, fuck your mother, fuck your children for being here tonight. Oh my God. I was so mad.
Did you ever get to watch a Red Wing game with Coulier?
Oh yeah. That's how I got to open for him.
Oh, really?
Did I never tell you this?
No.
Okay. So I got booked to open for him at the Chicago Improv 7 years ago, something like that. And Linda called me, who used to book there, and she's like, "Nate, Dave Coulier is coming to town. You're the only comedian in Chicago I can think of that might be clean enough to open for him. Would you be interested?" And I went, "Yep." Hung up the phone and went, "I don't know what the fuck I just agreed to. I've never once considered myself clean. I don't know why she thought of me as a clean comic, but I know better than to say no to that." And so I was like, right. Like, so I'm going through my set, and I'm like, I guess I'm really not that dirty of a comic. You just clean the swearing out of it, and it's mostly clean. There's a couple jokes I can't do. But then the week before I was to open for him, the Wings were in the finals. This is 2008. It's the last year we won it.
Yeah.
And there happened to be on the first night I was opening for Coulier, a Wings game that was nationally broadcast. So I got there early. I turned it on the TV in the green room, knowing that he would walk in the green room and be like, "Oh, I love the Red Wings." And I could be like, "Me also."
Exactly.
And like literally we spent the entire weekend talking Detroit, talking hockey. He grew up in the same town as my parents. Actually, one of my dad's old friends from school used to drive him to school when he was a kid, kind of thing. Yeah, just totally random. And so like by the end of that weekend, he was like, "Listen, I wasn't able to watch any of your show, but I could hear the audience. They clearly loved you. Got a couple of shows if you'd be interested in opening for me." And I was like, that was kind of the plan. That was the whole reason.
Yeah. Exactly. It's the whole reason I took all those fucks out.
Right. I didn't do this because I wanted to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's some money involved, which is nice, but other than that.
Yeah, but I mean, remember
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, remember like first time feature money? We're like, "We'll give you $75 a show." Wow. $300 for a whole weekend of work?
Yay. I'm rolling in it.
Yeah. Now, if I just don't eat all weekend, it'll cover my gas.
Well, that's the thing that's like one of the things that sucks about this whole pandemic, other than all the dying.
I mean, the dying, and then this next thing right here.
The cheap gas that all the comedians are missing out on.
I know, right?
We can actually afford to be on the fucking road now.
Dude, when I first hit the road, it was $4 a gallon.
Yeah.
$4 a gallon. Like I was legit. Like I started selling T-shirts, like every road comic does, because you're like, all right, if I don't sell 5 T-shirts this weekend, I lose money on gas.
Right.
It's insane.
That's crazy. Yeah, and so at that time when you got the gig opening for Coulier, were you still a teacher at that point, or were you full-time comedy already?
At that point, I think I was still teaching at that point. Yeah, hold on. No, that must have been 2009. I'm actually completely wrong about this because I haven't been doing stand-up that long.
Because we met in...
I can't remember, man. It's been so long.
I think we met in 2010.
Yeah, I think so.
It's funny because like everybody that I keep having on is like, we were on my first 10 for 10 was your first 10 for 10. So we did a 10 for 10. I don't know if we did Vernon Hills first or Old Town first.
It would have been, I did New Year's Eve at Vernon Hills for a 10 for 10. But I actually got blacklisted from Zanies for like 9 months in 2010 because Bert didn't like a show I did on a Tuesday night.
What did you do?
Yeah. So yes, I was still teaching, and like I was supposed to be subbing, and then like a woman went into, like, I was going to cover the first part of a woman's labor leave or maternity leave, and then another like former teacher at the school was going to come in and do like the last month and a half of it because he lived in New Zealand. So they were like, Nate, we just need you to cover like the first 2 weeks before he moves back to the state, because he does half the year back home. I was like, yeah, no problem. And then she went into labor 6 weeks early. So all of a sudden I went from like, yeah, I'm going to cover a couple of weeks to you start tomorrow. And it was my first ever paid week at Zanies was this same day. So I'm going through my first week of paid comedy work at Zanies, and I'm getting like thrown into this teaching situation. I was grading up in the green room, like before I go on stage, and I'm grading stuff that I didn't even assign. So I'm like, that seems like a B. That's a B-ish, I'd say, if I had to guess. B.
Why not?
Yeah, that first week, I vaguely remember moments of it, but I was so panicked the whole time, trying to do both things. And like, the one show Bert came to that week didn't go well. And he got real mad at me and just like, he was like, you know what I expect of you? That wasn't it. Come back when you're ready. And then he just didn't respond to me for like 9 months. And then I met the manager at Vernon Hills. She gave me the spot at that New Year's 10 for 10. And then Bert saw me there and he was like, all right, email me again. And I started back over at like the 8-minute audition spot and had to build back up into the rotation.
Out of so many Zanies comics that I know, I don't know anyone that has more Bert yelled at me stories than you.
Yeah.
Like, but the amazing thing is he keeps working you. But like, it's always like, I remember we were working together one time and I just had this fantastic conversation with Bert. I think we were at St. Charles. I had this fantastic conversation with Bert, hanging out Bolton, you were emceeing or whatnot. And Bert leaves and you go, he just yelled at me because I wasn't wearing a collar.
Yeah. Yes. That was the time he told me my shirt was inappropriate. I forgot about that. That was what was that? Sarah Colonna, right?
Yes, it was. Yes. It was Sarah Colonna.
Yep. I remember that because like I bought that shirt. Me and my girlfriend at the time, Leah. I went out with her and I was like, I need a new shirt. I'm opening for Sarah Colonna. She's cool. She's Chelsea Lately. I want a cool, nice shirt that I can wear on stage. Something that Pat McGann would wear on stage. Yes. That was my exact specification. I wanted to be something that Bert's favorite host would wear on stage. She got me a nice Henley at Marshall's, and he told me it was inappropriate.
It was a good shirt, too.
Here's the deal. I was like, can you see my nipples through? What does he mean it's inappropriate?
I know, right? Like,
yeah, and so idea. That got into my head so hard. And like, again, I loved that shirt. It was one of my favorite shirts. And like 6 months later, I finally figured it out. I'm like, he's just doing that to make sure I know he's in charge.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm one of those guys that as soon as somebody does something, I'm like, he hates me. I'm never going to work here again. Right. And I freak out. And it's just, he didn't want me to get comfortable. He knew I was getting booked, but he didn't want me to come in swaggering and being a dick. So he'd always like knock me back down. But it was like, it was a good 6 months later where I like sneakily wore that shirt on stage again. And I was like, if he says something, I'm going to apologize and pretend like it was a mistake. But he didn't say anything. I was like, you son of a bitch. You rat bastard. Because that show had gone great. That show had gone so well.
Great show. That was such a good show, man. Yeah, that was great. I remember just like, he just yelled at me because of my shirt. I'm like, what? So, one of the things I wanted to ask you about that I found when I was Googling you, which we were talking before the show, like I love Googling my friends and finding shit out about them. Do you still sing?
I do not still sing. Not in a long time.
Yeah.
Actually, the group I sang with in college, they just did this like largest virtual men's glee choir thing where they all like, everybody got a song and everybody got the voice part. We were all supposed to send a video and it was gonna be like 8,000 guys. And I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna.
You're like Andy on The Office with the.
Well, no, because Andy has confidence. He sings all
that's
the
true.
time. And like, I love to sing in a choir where I blend in and I'm one of the voices. And if I screw up, nobody can tell. But when I'm by myself, I screw up and then I just freak out and I can't enjoy it.
So did you start choir like how old was it? Was it a church thing or was it a school thing?
Yeah, well, I sang my whole life. Like I went to a church that didn't have instruments. Like it was like one of those Southern conservative, like the Bible never specifically says you can have a guitar in church. So we don't have guitars in church. And so like I grew up learning 4-part harmony. Like at church, if you wanted the music to not be terrible, you had to learn how to sing because there was no instrumentation, right? And so I could always sing. My mom is a phenomenal singer. My dad's a good singer. My whole family is pretty musical. And so it was always just kind of like this, like it was a background thing. I wasn't in choirs or anything. And then in high school, I decided I wanted to wrestle because I was 5'1" and 96 pounds and I wanted to be manly. I'm not going to be a wrestler.
Good in a singlet.
Right. I was awful. I got my ass kicked for a year straight. Like I think I was like 6-20 or something. I was terrible. And my sister was in the musicals and they did one where it's like something happened and they couldn't do the musical they wanted to do. So they let the kids write their own. And it was like the funniest thing. It was like the first time I'd ever seen like improv and sketch done by people my age. And I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And so like the next year I quit, I went into drama and choir. And then it was like for several years, every choir I auditioned for, I got into. Because I could like, I'm not great, but I can blend with other people. Like I said, like if I'm in a choir, I can make the choir sound
you can harmonize, you're good to go.
Right, exactly. And like I can't even read music. I just hear somebody do it right and I match what I hear. Like my best friend from college was a vocal performance major. He was an amazing singer. I would stand next to him, listen to him, and mimic the sounds he was making.
Yeah. Do you play an instrument at all or no?
No, I played tuba when I was in high school. And I was so short, they had to bring out a wooden box that I would put on my chair and I'd sit up on the box to reach the tuba.
Holy shit.
Yeah, remember the beginning of Rudy where they used those numbers to make fun of how small he was? That's how small I was.
I never really thought of you as short. I don't think you're short. I mean,
I hit a second growth spurt when I was 19 and I went from like 5'5" to 5'8", and those 3 inches, like you see a guy 5'5", you're like, oh, it's a little dude. 5'8", you're like, I guess he's a little short.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I'm 6 foot and I don't think of you as, that's funny, a box. Yeah. Did you have to sit in a booster when you're getting your haircut?
Oh yeah. I had that stuff. I was like the last kid at my age that could go on roller coasters and stuff like that. Yeah. Like when you go to Cedar Point when you're in 8th grade and you got a girl that you got a crush on and they're like, you can't ride the Magnum. You're like, I'll just go jerk off. I'm going to be alone my whole life. All right.
Oh man, wow. And then so you, when you went to college, you went to Michigan. Is your master's in education from Michigan as well?
No, I got my master's at U of I, Illinois. Okay. Yeah, so like I had moved to Chicago. Okay. Well, no, I had actually moved here. So after college, I moved to New York. I worked with a Broadway writer for about 6 months, and then my roommate in New York stole all of my money for cocaine. So I moved to Chicago because my parents in the meantime had moved to Chicago, and it was either like be homeless or moving with my parents here. So my mom was like, if you come here, I'll pay for your first class at Second City. I moved here, was here for like a year and a half. And then I decided to get my master's in teaching. And I realized if I went to school in Chicago, I wouldn't take it seriously. Like I'd still be doing comedy and stuff like that. So I went down to Urbana. So I was like, if I'm going to do this, I have to be there for it. So I spent a year and a half down there and then came back and then quit teaching. And it's, it's only a $60,000 mistake. It's no big deal.
Did you teach longer or study to be a teacher longer?
It was actually like 50-50. It was 2 years of grad school and 2 years in the classroom. Technically teaching longer if you count student teaching, because I did a semester of student teaching. So it was like 3 semesters of college and 5 semesters of teaching.
Damn. So what did you teach?
Well, so my degree's in English. Okay. But like, so my first year, I was basically like, I was Prospect High School out in Mount Prospect and Arlington Heights is like one of the best schools in the state of Illinois. And like the girl I was dating at the time, her dad had been the head of the English department there before he retired. And U of I was like running out of placements for student teaching. So she, like her dad reached out to somebody who got me a spot there. And once I got in there, everybody there was like, hold on for your dear life. Whatever you do, do not leave this district. This is the best one you can find here. Stay here. So the next year I was like the building sub. I worked there like 4 days a week, but I was just subbing mostly English, but like whatever they needed. And then the next year I was part-time. I was teaching guided study, which is like study hall for kids with learning disabilities. Okay. So it's like part study hall, but then also like I would do lessons where I taught them like how to approach a teacher to ask for help. Because it's the stuff like you and me, you realize like if a test doesn't go well, you walk up to the teacher and go, I don't know what happened. Can you help me? But some kids, they see that and based on like their triggers, they'll go, well, fuck you, teacher, you piece of shit. And then they get kicked out of school. And if you sit them down and be like, here are a couple of ways that you could approach that differently. And you can actually see the light go on where they're like, oh, if I just ask for help, a teacher wants to help. It's like, yeah, we love helping, but they just
kind of why we're there.
Yeah. And like a lot of them, it's just, they've never had an adult that wanted to help. So like my class was to like, it wasn't really necessarily learning strategies, but it was like helping yourself, like additional information that you can get or like resource management or like things like that. And then like the other half of the lesson, I was just like, study hall teacher there to answer questions or whatever.
That seems like that would help a lot for stand up and like teaching people like, come on, nope, come on.
Oh yeah.
Come on. This is how we, no, you got to come along for the drive now. Yeah. Come on.
No, drunken adults and teens with ADHD are the same thing. It's the exact same animal. Like I remember doing stuff on stage, like literally just being like, I will wait. And people like, you that's the thing as a kid. When a teacher says that, you're like, we're in trouble. But even at like 52, if you're a little bit drunk and you hear that, it just triggers that thing in the back of your head. We're like, oh, it's just a shitty comic. But like, there's this moment where it really gets them to settle in.
Why do you think so many teachers end up in stand-up? Because there's you, Amy,
Jeannie Dugan,
Amy Dugan, Amy Shanker. I got a friend of mine, Amy,
Will Miles.
She doesn't do stand up full time, but she performs it. She enjoys it. I think Ricky Gonzalez is a teacher too, right?
Yeah,
Ricky is, from Comedians You Should Know and Lincoln Lodge, actually. Sorry.
Yep.
What is it that draws teachers to this art form?
I think part of it is what I was just talking about. Like your audience is the same. Like you really do have a lot, like, a lot of comics when they're new and they don't understand what they're doing, like if they're losing the attention, they get louder. They're like, the room's loud, I need to yell over the room. What they don't realize is like, actually, if you get quieter, that's more noticeable. Like people will suddenly hear themselves talking in the room and go, oh, I can hear myself. Versus when you're screaming over them, they're like, well, the show's still going. And like that kind of stuff really does work in both settings. And then also teachers like, well, with comedy, there's the ego that goes into it, right? Like my job is I take a microphone into a spotlight and go, everybody shut up until I'm done talking. Or the professional bouncers will remove you from the room. Like there's a lot of ego that just, even like you meet the nicest comic in the world, you go, that guy's got a huge ego based on what his job is. And teaching, there's a lot of that too, where you go, I want to be the only grown-up in the room. I want to get up there. I have stuff to say. And if you have a problem, I will kick you out of my room. There's just so much overlap between the power dynamics, between the structure of what you're doing.
Wow.
And then also teachers hate what they're doing, so they look for hobbies.
So if keeping kind of along that same line and tying into the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, those crowds and those skill sets, do they work the same when you're on ground touring the United States or when you're on a cruise ship? Because I don't want to say you're a cruise comic, because you still tour a lot and do a lot of other stuff too. But what are the differences between those two crowds? Yeah,
I think so. When I first started doing the cruise ships, I had no idea what I was getting into. I was like, you know what? I'll take the paycheck, but this sounds terrible. But whatever, it's worth it. Like, I want to try it and just see what it's like. And honestly, like, the biggest issues with a cruise ship is just the fact that like you're given this little amount of time to do your show, and then like they want to move on. Like I have a show at 9, but then they've got couple bingo at 9:45, and then they've also got like a drinking bar session night at 9:45, and so like everybody's kind of like, all right, do your thing and let me get out of here. So there's not as much of the focus. You're just like the next thing.
You can't run long in that situation either. Like
almost never. Yeah. Like there's certain shows where they're like, all right, this one tonight, run as long as you want to, and that's like always the adult show when I'm like, good, because I want to. It's when you get to like the welcome aboard show at the beginning of the week, which is a family friendly, clean show. And it's like you and some dancers and some singers, and it's like a potpourri of all of the entertainment on the ship that week. And it sucks because there's like kids all over like running around the audience and stuff, and it's not what comedy is for. And every once in a while they'd be like, hey, by the way, one of the ballet dancers injured her toe, so we can't do that number. So if you just want to stretch it out like 10 more minutes. And I'm like, I don't want to stretch it out. I'm not going to stretch it out, as a matter of fact. So you can do whatever you want to do.
Right.
That's the conversation I have in my That's what I have in my head. What I actually say is, yes, thank you for having me here. Thank you so much.
Exactly.
35 minutes clean. Yeah, that's great. Let's do that.
Well, I've talked to a couple of different, not on the show, but I've talked to a couple of different people who do cruises, and they always like the reputation that's out there is it's like you've always got to work clean and it's all clean shows. And I've had several people tell me, they're like, no, it's like one clean show for the week, and that's where you make your money. That's really the only show that they care about is don't fuck up that show.
Yep.
Do the clean show, do it well, and then don't harass anybody.
So like every cruise line is different, every ship is different. Like even like I work Royal Caribbean, and most of their ships you get on midway through a cruise, you do an adult show and then a farewell clean show, and then they reboard the next day and you do a clean welcome aboard show and then an adult show again, and then you get off. And that way every cruise they get 2 sets of entertainers. So like I'm on for 1 week, but I do 2 cruises. And it's 100% true. Like I tell people, I'm like, adult show is playtime, clean show is paycheck. That's what it is. Like, this is the paycheck. You show up, you do not swear, you do not do anything offensive. You say, thank you so much, and you hope it goes well. And then they come back for the adult show, and you go, this is a little different. We're going to have some fun.
We're going to have some fun.
Yeah, I'm going to say some real inappropriate stuff because I'm the only person on this ship that's allowed to.
Are you by yourself most times, or do they have somebody else? Like I know I know a couple of times you worked with Lewis Johnson. Who's amazing. I love
Lou Johnson is one of the funniest people on this earth. That man it will turn anything fun. Like I just like sitting and watching him because you can just see him like looking around trying to find somebody, and then when he does it, you're like, yeah, go. What are you gonna do? Exactly. I'm so excited to see this. Yeah.
Exactly.
Most of the time, it's not. Most of the time. Like those are the smaller ships, like I said, where you just do like those 4 shows. On the bigger ships, where they actually have a comedy club, which is just a room, and they put a stage on it, and they're like, "That's the comedy club." And then they have 2 comics that week, and you do like 12 to 16 shows.
Damn.
But almost all of them are clean, and they're all like 20 to 25 minutes. And I wouldn't even been doing it as long as we have. So you're like 20. That's fine. Like it's like I'm warming up at 15, and then I get the light, and I'm like, dismount. All right, see you. We'll be back in 15 minutes. The funny thing with those though is like people will come up after a show and like at the beginning of the week and they're like, so you guys have like 12 more shows. Are they all different? I'm like, sir, if I had 4 hours worth of unique, great material, you would not be able to afford me here. No, I'm not going to do 12 unique shows this week. Like every show's a little different because I'll get bored,
right. But I'm here for a week and I brought 3 shirts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. So before we move on to this last segment here, I just wanted to add, while we're on the cruise ships, not to bring it down too much or anything, but were you out on the water when the coronavirus hit and all that stuff at first, and what was that like?
Yeah, so I was on a ship when it first started hitting the news, and I was 100% in the camp where I'm like, right, like swine flu and bird flu and H1N1.
Right.
I was like, yeah, sure, I'm sure this is a big deal. And everybody ignored it. Like when you're on a cruise ship, they're just slathering you in Purell anyway. So I'm like, this is honestly, I'm not worried about it. And then I was back for a week. And then that's when it really started, like people started to get nervous about it. And I was like, all right, I fly out on Friday. Once I fly out, they have to pay me no matter what.
Yeah.
I got to the airport, they owe me a check. And like Thursday night, that's when Royal Caribbean was like, we're officially shutting down. We're like, we can't send any more outbound ships. I was like, crap, I just lost all of my income. Like, I freaked out. And then I got a call like an hour later from my agent. And he's like, listen, this next ship, it was already out. You're literally meeting a ship that was already out. So they still need their entertainers. So you're still on. I was like, yes, okay, this is great. This is perfect. Get on the flight the next day. I fly to St. Martin. No, St. Kitts. Very different islands, like totally different culture and everything. But I got to St. Kitts. And I land, I get in a cab, and like when you get to these harbor towns, everybody knows the ship schedules because their entire economy is based around it. So the cab drivers, the restaurant, like everybody has a calendar letting them know so they know when to make their money. And I'm in this cab, and this cab driver's like, so which ship are you meeting? And I was like, Royal Caribbean Grandeur of the Sea, whatever it was. Yeah. She's like, oh, that's not on the schedule for tomorrow. And I was like, I just flew 3,000 miles, like it for sure. And she's like, no, there's nothing in the schedule. So I got to my hotel, dropped my stuff off. I walked down to the pier like 2 miles to where the cruise port was. And there was one security guard. And I was like, ma'am, excuse me, is there a ship coming in tomorrow? And she went, no, we have nothing on the dock. And I'm like, do I live in St. Kitts?
I
what the fuck? Like, I was like, so I'm immediately like on the phone with my agent. And I'm like, dude, they're telling me there's no ship. And he's like, I haven't heard anything from Royal. I'm like, well, these people know. Like, these people 100% know that there's not a ship coming in tomorrow. And so he was like, well, trying to make excuses. And in my head, I knew, like, this just happened. The entire world is falling apart. Royal Caribbean is trying to figure out how to get people home. Like, I just fell through the cracks. That's all that happened. It was just a mistake. But I got up the next morning, no ship, called my agent. He's like, Nate, wait till noon. I was like, why the fuck? What? Why did you pick noon? That means nothing to me.
Nothing.
Right. And so finally, like, I knew what he was trying to do. And like, I love my agent's name is Mike. He's a great dude, but it was just one of those things where I'm like, bro, there is no ship coming. Cause I could see like the entire horizon out of my hotel. And I'm like, there's not only is there not one here, there's none anywhere. There are no boats.
There's nothing. No one's even out fishing.
Right. And so I finally like got somebody else that was a comic, a buddy of mine, to give me a number to call at Royal Caribbean. I called them, got the scheduler who was like, hey, Nate, how are you? I'm like, I'm in St. Kitts. She's like, why are you in St. Kitts? Because you sent me here. And then finally, like, I'm sitting there trying to figure out, I'm like, am I just writing this thing out in St. Kitts? Because honestly, not the worst thing in the world. I would make it
right,
do.
Exactly.
But then like 20 minutes later, I get the call back and she's like, your flight leaves in an hour and 15 minutes. Get your ass to the airport now. And I got there, like I sat down and they were like, in 10 minutes, we'll start boarding. And I got on the flight and I was like, all right, that was insane. It was very intense, but I'm getting paid for a full week.
Ta-da.
Yeah, and it's a decent little story there.
Yeah, it's not bad. Sherry and I, my wife, we went on a cruise once.
Who? I'm sorry, I've never in 10 years heard you speak of Sherry. Who is this?
Who was this Sherry you speak of?
It's like when I was like, oh, right.
You're married? You have kids?
I hope they're not all daughters.
We took a Bahama cruise out of Miami on the Norwegian. I forget which one it is, but apparently it's like one of the only ships in the world. There's only like 3 of them that your price includes free liquor. Mm-hmm. So it's a smaller boat, which the thing was fucking gigantic. I don't like. It's hard for me to imagine like that's one of the small boats. But if you think about it, I like to tell you what I learned real quick because it was free. Like everyone's getting like these mixed drinks. Like I want a daiquiri, like I learned real quick that there were free and then there wasn't. But they had Johnny Walker Red Label was free.
All right.
And so I would be like, I'll take some Johnny Walker, and they would, they'll give me a cup with like that much in it, and I'm like, uh, you forgot some. Like, do you want me to come back here and bother you again? So I don't know. On that trip, I drank a ton of Johnny Walker. But when we were thinking about it, we were talking about like how on the ships they Perel. The thing that freaked me out is like they spray you with like hand sanitizer like when you're walking into the cafeteria. It's like a misting. I was like, what the? Oh, like what the fuck is that? They were like, when you come out of the bathroom, they spray you. I'm like, I just washed my hands.
Yeah.
Well, it was weird being on the ship, man.
No, there have definitely been times like because especially like last year I did like 18 cruises or something like that. So like I'm on there all the time and I'm eating every meal in there, and every time you walk in, there's a person that they squirt the hand sanitizer. I'd say about 95% of the time it's a Filipino woman. And I don't know if it's this way with all of the cruise lines or just Royal Caribbean, but every time they give you a squirt and they go washy washy, and it makes me feel like I'm being racist. It's like, it's what I'm like, it gets kind of the point where they start to do it. I'm like, please don't say that. It makes me feel really uncomfortable. I don't like it at all. Yeah, like I just washed my hands. Washy washy, washy washy. I'm like, I don't feel good about this at all.
At all. All right. Well, before I let you go, we're going to do this last segment that we call ambush. What I have here is an envelope with some words. I don't want to say topics because they're not.
All right.
So just some words that my 8-year-old and 10-year-old have written down. I have no idea what they are. So let's see. Here we go. First one's not bad. Books. That makes me feel like a good dad.
I'm for them. I want to come out strongly pro book.
Pro book. On the record, Weatherup, pro book. Right. Have you read any good books during the quarantine, the lockdown?
Yeah, I just read the latest Eric Larson book. He's the Devil in the White City guy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So he had his latest one was about like the lead up to World War, like the first 2 years of World War I, like before World War II, before America got in, like basically how Britain kept their air defense was the only reason that America was able to get into World War II kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because had that collapsed, it was over. But like I love historical fiction. Like I read an 800-page book once on the building of the Brooklyn Bridge.
What?
Like entirely too long. Way too long. Even for my standards, I'm like, we could cut 180 pages out of this. No question. But I just, American history is fascinating to me because it's like, as much as we talk about the Wild West, our entire country is the Wild West to the rest of the world. We just don't realize it. So like watching literally people fight out every single phase of our advancement and like the sneaky shit they did to get around laws, like, it just fascinates me. And then also, I read The Hunger Games.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I'd never done it. My dad said they were good, so I read them. They were delightful.
I am just, so I don't want to say that I'm not a reader because I enjoy reading, but I don't read books. I'm somewhere between a Sports Illustrated length article and a New Yorker article is too long, right? Like I'm like, no, that's too much. Atlantic, I read the Atlantic a lot. So I don't read like a lot of books, but I'm an article person. But the girls like books, at least the two older ones. I don't know about the twins yet. They're 5. They know how to spell their name.
Nice.
So I'll take that.
Heck yeah, dude. Yeah, reading for like with us, my mom was always like, never feel bad spending money on a book. That was one of her rules. Like no matter what, never feel bad spending money on a book. And so like my whole life, if I saw a book that I wanted, mom bought that book. And it was that way with all of us. So reading's just always been like, we'd go camping in the summer. And in the evening when it was like winding down, we'd light a campfire and everybody just be sitting around reading books. And I remember like one year I brought a friend and he was like a hockey player who's not a reader. And it was like nighttime, we're all sitting around reading. He was like, should we go do something? I'm like, we are doing something. We're reading. And he was like, you didn't tell me there was a homework section of vacation.
Are you an actual book person or are you a Kindle or iPad person?
I am 100% a real book person. I love reading books. I like folding it and like holding it in my hands. But with the like I used to bring 3 books with me on every cruise because like I'll burn
wow.
through them. Like you work an hour a night.
Yeah.
You got a lot of
You
free
gotta do
time on a
something.
cruise ship. So I was bringing them with me, and I was like, I had this 40-pound backpack, and finally my mom got me a Kindle, and she's like, Nate, it's a 6-ounce Kindle versus 4 books. Take the damn Kindle. And so that's what I've been doing now. And honestly, like I've got a link to my Chicago Library account, so I can just download stuff for free. I love it.
And now you've put on 10 pounds because you're not carrying around 30 pounds of
How can you tell?
The beard hides it well.
Dude, I shaved off the beard because I was bored in quarantine, and I looked in the mirror and I was like, I got way fatter than I thought I had got. Like, so much chin.
The first time I shaved, so I had a goatee for just the chin, just the chin forever. So when my wife and
I remember
met,
the 2000s.
Yeah, I remember they were great, right? So when my wife and I met, I couldn't grow any facial hair at all. So it was smooth baby face. And then I could grow out the chin, so grow out the chin. Well, when we got married, she was like, listen, the only thing I'm asking is you shave that off. I want you to look the way we did when we got married. I'm like, great. So I shave it off. And the first thing she goes, not that. I'm like, I said some shit like that to you.
Yep.
But I shaved it. This is, I'm doing my hockey thing. So I shaved at the beginning of quarantine. I shaved off my beard. And now I'm like, I'm not trimming it until the quarantine's over, and then I'll trim it. So, all right, let's see. Here we go. Pictures. And kind of spelled right. Pictures.
All right.
Let's see.
I like taking them.
Like taking them? You're a photography guy?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I guess my bigger thing is that I can't draw to save my life. Like when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was be an artist. I just sit there and draw all my hero. Like I loved WWF when I was a little kid, so I'd like draw Hulk Hogan and Macho Man, and then cut him out and wrestle with him and stuff. And then like I just never got better from that like 7-year-old art level. It just never improved. And I remember by like 5th or 6th grade where I saw other people in art class, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's just embarrassing.
It's so funny that you say WWF because this is the first time I'm using this chair. So WWE is one of my clients, and I'm a WWE fan.
You took me to one.
Yeah. So if you're down on the floor, you get to take seats home with you during a pay-per-view. So
that's not fair.
My chair is
you suck. You took me to a Raw, so I didn't get to keep the chair, you dick.
Oh, that's right. It was a Raw.
Or was it even a Raw, or was it like a local thing?
No, it was a Raw.
It was a Raw. Yeah, but then like CM Punk came out at the end, and it wasn't on TV. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. I said before we wrap up, we were talking about wanting to be an artist when you were younger. So I lost an argument to my. She'll be 9 in in less than a week.
I like that you're rounding up to make it sound less bad for you. Like she's really 9. She's really 9. It's really not an 8-year-old.
I lost an argument to her that she doesn't think that what we do is art. She's like, I want to be an artist. I'm like, I'm an artist. She's like, no. Like, no, I want to paint and I want to do, and I'm like, well, yeah, but I was like that, and that's a form of art. What I do is a form, and after about 5 minutes, I was like, I have lost this argument. Like, I have not.
No offense, but fuck your daughter.
Yeah, exactly,
fuck your 8-year-old daughter. Almost 9.
Let's stick with 9.
Honestly, it's one of those things where it's like so clearly what we do is an art form. It's so creative, and it's like, every show is going to be different no matter what. Like that, it's fucking jazz in spoken form.
Yeah.
But the moment you try to explain that, you just sound like such a fucking douche. Right? Like, no matter, like, you can't win that argument. You can put down definitive, factual, peer-reviewed evidence that it's art, and people are like, you seem like such a douche. And you're like, I know.
Yeah, I know. I know. But I'm an artist douche.
Yeah, I'm allowed to be a douche because of my art.
Exactly. Oh, well, hey, man, it was great catching up with you. The thing that sucks about thing that sucks about ending these interviews in like normal times would be like, hey, you want to tell anybody about shows you got coming up? Like,
Right.
you're like,
Well, here's the deal.
no.
If we open back up, I will be house MC at Zany Chicago in the entire month of June. So any night but Monday I'll be there. And then in August, I am at Zany's Rosemont. So
nice. Awesome. Yeah, I hope that we're open back up at some capacity by that point, doing something, you know, so that's good to know. June, Zany's Old Town, and August, Zany's
St. Charles, or no,
Rosemont.
Yeah.
No, St. Charles closed.
That one closed. Yeah. That one actually, let's bookend this show on Bert Haas stories.
There you go.
So I was supposed to be like MC in Rosemont in December, but it was like last minute. They were like, oh crap, we don't have a host next month. And I was like, I'm actually mostly in town. Let me know. And of course, like cruises came through. So it went from like, I'm supposed to be there the whole month to like, I'm going to be there next Thursday. And that's the only night all month. Right. But like New Year's Eve had been up in the air the whole time. And like, I'd emailed Dan and Bert a couple of times and like, hey, do you need me New Year's Eve or not? Just like, either way, it doesn't matter. Just let me know so I can plan around it. And then finally on like December 20th, Bert sends back one of his famous Bert 4-word emails where he's like, well, since St. Charles shut down, we're just going to use Brian. I was like, what? What? Why did you just say that to me? Like, what? Like, I love that club. It's shut down, and that's how you drop it to me? And so I immediately texted one of the women that were Sadie's downtown. I'm like, St. Charles closed? And she was like, wait, what did you hear? And I'm like, Bert just said it. She goes, okay, I wasn't sure if I was allowed to say anything because we're not supposed to. So I was like, so Bert told you to not tell people and then still treated me like I was supposed to know.
That is Bert. Yep. I have to, I'll end on my favorite Bert story.
Yes,
where
please.
I was at, it was a 10 for 10 that when they were still doing those in Old Town, and Bert was watching all of them, and that's how you got booked. Now they're done out with Dan, and you know they've got a good system now, but this is back when Bert was watching them. And so I was on the show, but I didn't have to be there. Bert's notorious for like call time is 7:30.
When I say 7:30, I mean 7:30.
I mean 7:30. So this dude, I get there, I go up, I don't have to be there at 7:30 because I've done it before. And Bert's like, yeah, just make sure you're here, you know, by 7:45, I get 15 minutes, right? So I'm sitting there downstairs up front, and this comedian comes walking in late, and it's like 7:40. And for some reason, I was wearing a coat and tie that day. And he walks up to me and he's like, hey, are you Bert? And I was like, no, I'm not. And he was like, oh, sorry, I'm late for the show. I need to find a Bert. And I just look at him and I go, good luck.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, I'm sorry I'm late. He was like, he was on that flight path that was like in San Francisco, like when the thing ran off the end of the thing. And so his flight got in late and everything. He did not perform. And he just sat there like he had flown in from California.
Yeah.
And did not perform.
Oh, yeah, like, dude.
Man, like that is,
I did it.
This is how it's done. And, you know, it's worked well for him.
There was one of those where it was like, it was a Rising Star showcase, and it was on a night where it was torrential downpouring. Like, it was insane. It took me 40 minutes to get there, and I lived on Chicago. Like, it took me so long. Chris Condren, you remember Chris?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, played the piano, and he's out in LA now. But it was like he got there at 7:33, and he used to live up at like the Wisconsin border. And he got there at like 3 minutes late. He's soaking wet, and he walks up the stairs, and Bert goes, well, too bad you're not going on tonight. And Chris was like, I'm so sorry. It took me over 2 hours to get here. And Bert goes, should have left 2 hours and 15 minutes ago. And just turned around. Oh, that's so cold.
So cold.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Bert though, man. He's awesome. He's that's what makes it fun working for him is
Mhm.
that he's
Yep.
like that.
Oh yeah. And once you figure out what it is and why he does it, it's hilarious. It's like you get it,
Right.
you're like, oh, that's really funny to do that to new people. Now
I
I'm
know.
part of the joke. This is great.
I was sitting up in the green room one time. It was me, Pat McGann. I can't remember who the third comedian was. And we were all, it might have been like Brian Hicks.
Okay.
And we're all sitting around talking about our kids, and Bert's sitting there not saying anything. And there's like a moment of silence, and Bert just goes, "Man, I remember back in the 80s, you guys sitting around talking about your kids and everything. Back in the 80s, we'd all just, this whole table would have been down with cocaine and everyone would have just been partying." And we're like, sorry to disappoint, Bert.
Oh yeah. Remember the first
He's
time you
been
got
there a
into a
long
green
time.
room and you're like, this is gonna be a party with comics, and everybody's just like laying there like, I'm exhausted and I hate myself. Like, this was more fun with cocaine, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. No wonder the comedy boom happened in the 80s
Right?
and 90s. All right, man. Well, thanks for hanging out and chatting with me. It was
Yeah.
good to get caught up.
Thanks
I'm
for
glad
having me,
that
man.
you and everybody are healthy, and I hope that you stay that way.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead
Same
and
to you, dude.
we'll finish it up, and then we can say bye when we turn off the recording and everything too. But thanks again so much, and I will talk to you soon.
See you soon, bud.